Okay, sorry. All right, so that's kind of the difference between those two. So hopefully that kind of um, maybe makes that a little more obvious. And I love this quote that says, "Hunger is a lot like love. If you don't know if you are, you probably aren't." So I know if I ever spend 10 minutes trying to decide if I'm hungry or not, I'm not hungry because I just probably want to eat and I wish I was hungry because I feel like eating. But if I'm spending too long debating it, it's probably not hunger. Um, okay, so how do I avoid emotional eating? That's probably something that we'd all would like to avoid. And the biggest thing, and I'm actually reading the book right now, Women, Food, and God by Janine Roth, and I know a couple of the rest of you are too. And if you haven't read it, I really recommend it. You don't have to be religious or anything. It's a great book, but it really talks about the importance of self-care, and it's so true. If you are not taking care of yourself, it's going to be very easy to go to food when you're feeling stressed or bored or overwhelmed. Um, so we're not going to talk too much about different ways of self-care right now, but um, taking care of yourself, whether it's by exercising, getting some alone time, yoga, going on a walk, whatever, that's really important in this whole avoiding emotional eating. So why is it so important? So if your needs are not being met, food is too easy. It's too quick. It's too easy. And it's satisfying in the moment, not after. So that's if you're not meeting your needs, it's food is just going to be right there. Um, and when you aren't meeting your needs, it does make it really hard to connect with your inner hunger signals. So if you're super stressed and overwhelmed, you're not going to really be in tune to those physical hunger cues that we were talking about. And on the opposite side, when our needs are being met, we're able to make better decisions for ourselves because we feel better. We're mentally more stable, so we can make better decisions, and we feel better. So we're less likely to experience those emotions that lead to emotional eating. So if you're taking care of yourself, you won't be as stressed, you won't be as overwhelmed, so you're less likely to emotional eat. So that is a big part of it, which like I said, we're not going to talk too much about right now, but I really recommend that book. So, emotional eating as a blessing. Whoever has thought about, oh, that I'm so glad that I just emotionally ate. What a blessing. Well, it really can be a blessing in disguise. When we like, as you're going through this intuitive eating process, if you find yourself emotionally eating, which is obviously not one of the goals of intuitive eating, but it will happen and it's okay. It's actually a really great indicator to us that something in our life needs to be addressed. So if I find myself sitting down to a piece of cake and I'm not hungry and I don't need it by any means, my body doesn't need it, then that tells me, okay, let's step back. This is not about the cake. Something else is going on here. Yes, this cake is good, but something else is going on. So it can be a really good indicator to you that you need to take care of yourself in some other ways. So one that maybe a lot of you experience that I know I do when you get home from work and you have a headache and you're tired and you're grumpy, whatever. Hopefully not every day, but when that happens, it can be really easy to just go right to the pantry. But really, what you probably need, unless you are really hungry, is a nap or some adult time or some alone time. So that's kind of what we have to start figuring out what it is that we need and start doing that. So the last thing here, so what if I do want to eat and I'm not hungry? A lot of people, when they read the intuitive eating book and it talks about eating when you're hungry, they think, okay, I can only eat when I'm hungry, and if I don't, then I've failed. Um, but that's not true. And there are many reasons why you might eat when you're not hungry. So, why might this happen? You might be going to a long event and there might not be any food there. So, you're trying to prevent yourself from being totally starving by the time it's over. But you need to be aware that since you're eating and you're not hungry, your body's not going to tell you to stop. So, you're going to have to be pretty aware and know how much you need to get through that event. You might do it at a social gathering because there might be new fun foods there that you want to taste. Um, but on the other side, we need to be aware that it won't be very satisfying, if at all, because our appetite is not really heightened. So it might be satisfying the second it's in our mouth, but it probably won't be after. During the holidays, of course, there's probably going to be some eating without being hungry. And again, you just have to be very tuned in, know that there's no physical cue to stop. And there might just be times when you just don't have the desire to do any other self care. If you take care of yourself 90% of the time without using food, and that 10% you just don't have the energy to, it's not the end of the world and it's totally human. Um, but it could make the problem worse. So it's something to be aware of. You know, we don't want to make the problem worse, but sometimes it's the best solution. Um, Good. So sorry that I talked so long. But this is kind of a really tricky topic to navigate. So really we're just going to talk about how to reconnect with our hunger signals and overcome emotional eating tonight. So actually to get us started, I just wanted to send this poll out. If you're on the phone, sorry, you're just going to have to listen to what people submit. So this first one, I would love to know how you guys know that you're hungry. So I'm going to launch this poll for you. Um, Now you should be able to click more than one. Um, One reason that you can tell, or one way that you can tell that you're hungry. So if you're on the phone, the options are stomach growling, lightheaded or a headache, grumpy, you have no energy, or you just simply don't know. So it looks like most people are picking multiple. They definitely do come in pairs or triples. They usually all come together. Sometimes you don't get a headache, but you're probably feeling faint or low energy. So that's great. Really awesome that most of you seem to know what it feels like. Um, the second one that I'm going to close this one. The second one that I wanted to launch was which of the following apply to you? And this is about when you let yourself eat. So oftentimes when we're on a diet, a lot of times we won't always let ourselves eat when we're hungry. Um, some people actually love the feeling of being hungry. It makes them feel like they're getting closer to losing the weight or they're doing what they're supposed to be doing. Some people have a really big fear of being full. So it can really depend kind of where you're at. So it looks like most of you are saying usually and sometimes allow yourself to eat when you know that you're hungry. I'm really glad to see that at least a couple of you always do. And it's great that all of you are connected to your hunger signals and at least know when you're hungry because that's the first step. Okay, so um, let's see. I'm going to take a break from talking now. So if you have any sort of, looks like actually there was one question. Why don't I see it? Um, if you have any sorts of questions about what just kind of was talked about in the PowerPoint or any experiences about kind of how you've reconnected with your hunger signals or maybe how your eating is different than it was before, anything like that, I'll unmute you or you can just type your question in if you would rather. Brittany, all right, let's unmute you. There we go. Hey, Brittany.
So one of my questions, and I know that somebody posted this, I believe in the intuitive eating group, was about being at work and how you deal with your hunger at work when you only have certain set times that you
Right.
can eat.
Yeah.
And I know, like with her, and I don't remember who posted it. She said, her lunch break doesn't come till 12:40, but she's hungry at quarter to 12.
Right. What do you
I,
do
I
then?
Yeah, I kind of feel like we all have a bit of that problem, whether it's because we only have a set break time for lunch, or like for me, sometimes I don't know when I'm going to be able to eat lunch. Sometimes it's at
Yeah.
12, sometimes I'm so busy I don't eat until 2.
Right.
So how do you go about handling that with really trying to, honor your hunger and get something to eat that will satisfy and fill you up until you're able to eat your meal and still
Mm-hmm.
do the rigors of work?
Yeah, and I wish I had my book out in front of me and I need to open it to this page sometime. But in the Intuitive Eating third edition, she talks specifically about, or they talk specifically about this situation because let's be serious, we can't always honor our hunger 100% because we have work, we have family, whatever. So the most important thing is to be flexible, I would say. It's not a hard and fast rule. If you know, for example, that girl that posted in our group, maybe some of you guys have a set lunch hour. But maybe like me today, I got hungry like 45 minutes before my lunch was going to come. Now, I made the mistake of not bringing a snack, but I feel like it's better to eat something small that you enjoy that will hold you over till lunch. if you want to be able to eat your lunch during lunch, kind of make your snack a size that will kind of just get you to lunch. If you don't mind pushing your lunch back, then you can eat something bigger than if you have the time or whatever. Um, but I think the thing that you want to try and avoid the most is letting yourself getting to that starving state. Because as you guys probably know, if you ever get to the point where you are starving, you feel like you could eat everything, that probably is going to be what happens, because it's just kind of a biological thing. If our body thinks, oh my gosh, I'm never going to get to eat, you're going to want to overeat. So um, if you can avoid getting to that point, you definitely want to. And it's better to do that than to say, well, I'm not hungry, so I can't eat. You can. You just need to be more aware that nothing in your body is going to tell you to stop. So yeah, I think hopefully that makes sense. I think you just have to be
Hmm.
flexible and just always have an emergency snack. That's something that I've been really bad about, but always have something on hand just in case. You don't want to get to that, oh my gosh, I'm hangry, you know? So, um, yeah, does that make sense, Brittany?
Yeah, yeah.
Good. And I know it's easier said than done, of course. It's something that just takes some time and practice, but I'm glad you asked that because that is a really common question. It's been asked in every group that I've been in. So, thank you. All right. I'm going to mute you again. Okay. Does anyone else have any questions or comments or their experiences with their hunger as they've been trying intuitive eating or how that's felt or anything like that? I'll play the waiting game in case someone gets brave. No? Okay. Well, I don't want someone to like play the pity party on me and bail me out. So, um, I guess then I we can go back to kind of talking about this whole idea of avoiding emotional eating and self-care. So, does anyone, again, I'm going to ask you to talk, but I'll share first. I was talking about, the idea of self-care is so important in avoiding this emotional eating. So myself, I know that yesterday, for example, I felt as if I should be productive and I should work because I took Saturday off for my boyfriend's birthday. So I felt like I needed to be productive, but deep down, I really just wanted to watch Netflix and do a puzzle because I'm super nerdy. And so that's what my boyfriend and I decided to do because I knew that if I didn't self care yesterday, I was going to be bitter and resentful during the week because I don't have as much time. Or I don't make enough time during the week right now to self care, even though I should. So I figured Sunday is a day of rest. So that's something that I do to kind of make sure I don't set myself up in the beginning of the week to start it off with emotional eating. So has anyone else kind of found something that's helped them as far as feeling less stressed or less overwhelmed or less emotional? What's working for you guys? Hey, Brittany, extra credit for you. All right, Brittany, what do you do?
So one of the things that I do, and it's actually kind of funny because I used to use it when I dieted as a way to not eat food, but I take naps. Like during the week, I don't really get a chance to take many naps because of
Mm-hmm.
my schedule. But during the weekend, I really take the time, to at least make sure that I get in one nap during the weekend, just because I know that, my work is really exhausting. I get home, I'm tired, but I know I can't go to bed too early. So when the weekend comes, I get up early, my cat gets me up, so I get all my stuff done. And I know that come about 11, 12 o'clock, I can take some time to be like, you know what, I'm going to take an hour nap. Even if I don't fall asleep, I can just lay there and relax. The TV's off, there's no music playing. I have some earplugs in just in case the dog starts barking. So I just kind of make it a nice, quiet, relaxing environment. If I fall asleep, fantastic. If I don't, then it's just kind of my time to just sit and reflect
Right.
and just kind of any random thoughts that have been going through my head, I can actually sit down and organize them out and get them out of my head if it's, there's something that's just been looping in my head for a while. So
Right.
one of the things that I really like to do is to nap because it does calm me down and kind of refresh me to get through the rest of the day. And it's something I look forward to during the week because I can't really take a nap on the weekdays. So when the weekend comes, I'm like, yay, it's my nap day, and it gives me kind of something to look forward to. I know it is a little silly because it's a nap, but that's one of the things that I do to really make sure that my body kind of gets a little reset button during the weekend to get me ready for the week.
For sure. And it's funny that you mentioned that you used that when you were dieting, because I definitely did too, and I'm sure some other people here did, because you were like, oh, I can't eat if I'm sleeping. So
Mm-hmm.
it's cool that you now look at it in a different way of, okay, I can't eat, but I'm going to choose to go nap because this is what's better for me right now. So awesome. I'm going to mute you real quick. Thank you for sharing twice. Okay, Kathy actually told me that Taylor, I see your hand, so I'm going to go to you in a second. Kathy told me that she's been trying to raise her hand, but it's not working. So if you are trying to do that, just type it in the chat or the question, and maybe I'll see it there. So Kathy, I'm going to unmute you. What's up, Kathy?
Oh, okay. So I wanted to share real quick first on what Brittany was talking about work. I mean, I'm a little bit luckier because I have like a mini fridge in my office and snacks in my drawer, so I can just eat whenever I want or whatever, which has gotten me in a lot of trouble in the past.
Right.
But like today, and it's funny because I had, I had lunch, and then I had about 3 hours into the afternoon, about 3:30, I was hungry again, so I had a snack, and I thought it really filled me up, but it was a lot of vegetables, so I think that it was kind of like I thought it filled me up way more than it did, and about 4:45, which I leave around 5 or 5:15, so about 4:45 I was like, man, I'm really hungry. I'm not going to eat probably until 6:30, so I had like 10 nuts, and that was enough to hold me over
Right.
until I got home. But it was just enough, so I always keep like I have a little bag of nuts in my car, and nuts are one of those things that's really you can only have you just have a few, and it just for whatever reason it fills you up and it satisfies you for
Right.
that short term.
Uh-huh.
But
Yeah.
I was also going to talk about the self-care, um, and one thing that I started doing a couple months ago is meditation, and I think it's starting to finally pay off. It's one of those things that I think it takes a while.
Yeah, I bet.
But I found this program called Headspace, and you can do for like the first 10 days for free, and I actually got I get emails like I had one for a month. You could send it to a friend for a month for free, and I sent it to my husband so he could do it for free. But it's like the first 10 days is just 10 minutes, and it's guided meditation, and I really really like it. So that's one thing. Every morning after I work out and after I take a shower, then I do like 10 or 15 minutes of that, and it's like 15 minutes of sitting there and just doing that guided meditation. It's like it's just my time, and I have to do it in the morning because in the evenings it's like things are just kind of crazy.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's awesome. And I'm going to go back to what you said at first about the work thing. I'm sure it can sound kind of scary to others to have a whole bunch of emergency snacks in their purse or at their desk, whatever. But just keep in mind that when you're in a diet mentality, of course it's scary because there's just food around you and you're not supposed to be eating as much or, as often. So, once you kind of get more comfortable with the intuitive eating, it's not as scary to have food around you. So that's a really good idea to like have emergency snacks. And it doesn't take much to hold you over. And if you wouldn't have done that, you probably would have gone home and been way too hungry and probably overeaten because you just let yourself get too far.
Yeah.
And it's
Well, real quick and about having the emergency snacks is the thing is if I'm going to binge, it doesn't matter if I have snacks or not. I will find food. So
true, true. They are
so
very good point.
for the most part, having those emergency snacks has really helped. But if I get in a situation where I'm disconnected and I'm going to binge, yeah, it doesn't really matter whether I have food or not because if I don't have it, I'll find it.
You're so right, and I'm sure everyone can relate to that. If you are in the zone and you're ready to binge and you're going to, it doesn't matter. You'll go get it. I'm sure we've all had to run out and get food before for that reason. Um, so thank you. And that guided meditation sounds great, especially if you are uncomfortable with the idea or you haven't done it before. Guided meditation is really great because you don't have to just like it's not just sitting there and like oming the whole time. So that's a good, I feel like, way to get started with it. Um, if it's kind of intimidating, to kind of have to stop thinking and get really inside yourself. So yeah, I think that's a great idea. So thank you for sharing. Um, if you have trouble again, just ask the question and hopefully I'll see it this time. Or you can text me again.
Okay.
Okay, I'm gonna mute you again. So Taylor, sorry you've had your hand up for a while. I'm gonna unmute you. What's up, Taylor? You there? Uh-oh, hold on. Maybe I didn't unmute you. Oh, it doesn't look like you have audio, but you raised your hand. Okay, if you are having an issue, try and type
Oh,
it to
now can
me.
you hear me?
Yeah, there you
Can you
are.
hear me? Okay. I think I muted myself.
You did, I bet. What's up?
I was just gonna say I am pretty similar to you where throughout the week I don't really have time to self-help or whatever. But throughout on the weekends when I know that I need to be productive, I kind of let myself have different rewards. So like if I'm cleaning on the weekend, then I'll be like, okay, once I get my bathroom and the room clean, then I will go watch an episode of Netflix or something. So that way I'm still getting my self-care in and I'm also being productive at the same time.
Yeah, that's a great idea. And I actually want to take back what I said. Um, I do it's kind of like the whole workout idea. Of course, I have time to self-care during the week, just like I have time to work out. It's about making the time. So I guess what I meant to say is that I've been not been doing a great job making the time. I feel like if we really start to understand how important it is and how it's affecting everything else in our life, we will find the way to make the time. And I think the reward system is good, but I think it's also good to really like block out an intentional amount of time where you're like this time I'm going to be spending doing this. Because sometimes I feel like when you break it up like that and you're like trying to earn it, it may not feel as rewarding and you may feel like you're kind of cutting yourself short. But it's better than nothing for sure. And if that's kind of how you fit it in, then that's, a great start. But I feel like just like you were saying, I think we can all find probably more time during our week for self care because if we only self care on the weekends, we're going to be pretty bitter during the week and always living for Friday. So I don't know if you relate to that at all, but sometimes I feel like I'm living for Friday too much. So yeah, but thank you for sharing. Do you have anything else to say before I mute you?
No, I agree with living for Friday. It is kind of a sad cycle to live through every week. So
It
um,
is. I
definitely
think
finding time throughout the week for self-care is important.
I agree. And I think that would definitely help with the living for Friday problem. Okay. Feel free to raise your hand again. Thanks for sharing. Okay. So Tana wrote in, I would like to hear thoughts on the hunger scale and where people strive for or how they manage the fullness feeling. So first of all, the hunger scale, depending on what book you're reading, it can be 1 to 5 or 1 to 10. It's usually easier just think of it on a 1 to 5 scale. When I think of it, I think of 1 as being like empty and totally, or wait, hold on. 5 is like super, super full, so like uncomfortable, kind of like I don't know, maybe if you've left a Mexican restaurant and had too many chips and salsa and feel like, oh, too much. 3 would be kind of neutral, not really hungry, not full. You're just kind of it's how you feel when you've maybe eaten an hour ago. And then 1 would be absolutely starving. So kind of that's what the hunger scale is. And it's a really great tool to use when you're starting getting back in touch with your hunger is to before you start eating, am I a 1, 2, 3, 4, or 5? And after you're done eating, again, am I a 1, 2, 3, 4, or 5? And kind of seeing where you're at. So does anyone kind of has anyone ever used that tool or thought about it before? And what do you kind of strive for? Is what she's asking. And how do you manage that feeling of fullness? And we're going to talk about feeling of fullness in another Q&A, because to me that's even harder than the hunger thing. Hunger signals are a lot more obvious than fullness signals. um, okay, Brittany. All right, Brittany, what's your experience with the hunger scale?
So I use the 10 hunger scale just because I think if I didn't, I would just use halves anyway.
Okay,
And I
fair enough.
do 1 as being starving, well past the point of where I should be, and 10 as being super full, ate way too much, feeling sick.
Uh-huh.
And so I strive usually for, in honesty, about a 6 where I'm satisfied, I've eaten, I feel full. I could probably eat a little bit more, but I'm going to stop just because I'm like, you know what, I am satisfied, I'm full, and if my body is okay with that, then I'll be good to go for, a couple hours. If it's
Hmm.
not, I'll know in about 10 minutes.
Right.
And then I'll be like, okay, maybe I'll have my fruit cup as well, or, I'll have that little pack of almonds that I have. If I'm not hungry, then, yay, I'm not hungry. So I do strive to not necessarily be in the, completely satisfied and I'm not going to be hungry for hours on end. That does sometimes happen, especially when I eat supper. But especially during the day, I usually strive for about a 6 where I finish, like today I had a salad, I finished my salad, and I was like, well, I think I'm full. And about 10 minutes later, I was still feeling a little hungry, so I had my fruit cup, and then
Hmm.
I was fine. So I
Yeah.
do kind of try to stay right on that little border
Hmm.
of being completely full and being satisfied. And I
Right.
think that really kind of helps me to also pay attention to myself a little bit more.
I agree. And I think for someone who's new to this, or even if not, it can be scary to think, well, only aim for a 6. Like, what if I get hungry again in an hour? And that's the thing. Like, I would rather aim for a 6 and not be super stuffed, or, how you said, where maybe you could eat a little bit more, but you choose not to. Well, that's fine, because if you get hungry sooner, than you would have if you went to an 8, it all balances out. It's all the same. If you eat to an 8, you might take another 4 hours to eat. Well, if you eat to a 6, you might take 2, but you ate less when you did the 6 than you did the 8. So that was a lot of numbers, but it all kind of balances out when you're really
Yeah.
honoring your hunger signals. But I think it's kind of better to play it safe that way. And you're right. If you sit and wait, um, you'll know if you still need to eat some food. It just might take some practice. So that's really awesome strategy. Um, I'm gonna pass it over to Kathy here, who's got her hand up and it's working now. All right, Kathy, you are on.
Yeah, that was the first time I actually saw the hand. Before that, I was like, oh, I didn't even know what it meant.
Okay, no
Um,
worries.
but yeah, I have my hunger journal, and I have the piece of my dietitian gave me the paper that describes every level from 1 to 10. And
Right.
so I typically am around a 3 when I eat, but sometimes a 4. And I try to, sometimes they even put like 3.5 because the descriptions are very specific. And I've
Mhm.
really had to work on this 6 versus 7 because I was always saying I was a 6, but then it would be three or so hours before I was hungry again, and the 7 says you're satisfied and you probably won't need to eat again for 3 to 5 hours. Well, it was usually at least 3 hours, so she said, there's sometimes it's only a couple bites between a 6 and a 7. So, um, but yeah, I typically eat at a 3 or 4 and stop at a 6 or 7, and that and I'm typically hungry about every 3 hours.
Right.
It's pretty on the spot. I mean, I'll look at my thing and I ate at 6 and 9:15 and 12:15 and 3:30, and it's like,
Mhm.
every 3 hours.
Yep.
So yeah, that's pretty good. The fullness thing is a little, like you said, it's a little more difficult to figure out
It
because,
is.
and one thing I've had to do is because for for the first time I went to a dietitian, the second time I went, I was like, well, I can't tell the fullness thing, and I was telling her that after lunch one time, about 15 minutes after lunch, I was way fuller, and she said, well, how long do you take to eat? And I was like, I don't know, like 5 minutes, and she's like, well, that's why. And so I set, like, if I'm at work or if I'm at home, I set like a timer for 20 minutes and I just kind of check in and see. And for the first time, I set it for 15 minutes and it was like torture trying to figure out what the heck to do, how
Yep.
to eat for 15 minutes. I was like, without distractions, I'm like, what am I supposed to do?
Yep.
So that's been really interesting because I know a lot of people, that's one thing that's really helped me is slowing down, way down.
Mhm. And it can feel like torture at first, but you're so right. Actually, Tana and I, we're in a group together, and we're eating without distraction this week, and it's really hard. I'm used to doing something on my phone, watching Netflix, whatever. It's hard to just sit there and eat, but I already could tell today how much of a difference it makes. You literally have nothing else to think about but the food, so you really do enjoy it a lot more. And it does help you stop sooner because you're totally tuned into the food. And as far as you saying the whole, it's kind of like clockwork, every 3 hours you're hungry. And the thing is I'm kind of like that too, but at the same time, like there are days when I eat lunch at 10:30, there are days when I eat lunch at noon. It it doesn't have to
Oh, yeah.
be clockwork. And the only thing that, I kind of be careful with when people are asking me when am I supposed to eat is there is no supposed to. And we kind of have to break away from these rules of breakfast is at 7 or 8, lunch is at noon.
Yeah.
And there are some days I'm sure maybe you get hungry at different times, and it depends on the food that you're eating. If I eat a bowl of cereal for breakfast, I'm going to be hungry in 2 hours. If I eat a protein shake, I'll probably won't be hungry for 3 or 4. So that makes a big difference too, and it's kind of finding that balance between foods you enjoy and foods that kind of sustain you, but you still enjoy but sustain you longer, because that's probably more
Yeah, and
satisfying.
and sometimes I'll find that like, it's I mean, I'm not trying to eat over every 3 hours. It's just I look back at my log and I see that that's usually what happens. But like on the weekend, so like on the weekend, if I really want to have something for dessert in the evening, then I'll make sure we eat like at 5 or 5:30, and I'll eat like a little bit less and not eat quite as much because I want to be hungry and at like 8, so
Yeah.
a little bit hungry so I can eat. Of course, a lot of times when I eat dessert, I'm like, at a 4. I'm not necessarily, hungry, like at a 2 or 3 because
Uh-huh.
a dessert wouldn't really fill you up that much, so.
Right.
Uh, but yeah, I mean, and sometimes, sometimes like I look at my calendar at work and, I typically am hungry about 9 o'clock when I eat breakfast, because I have a shake in the morning, like at 6. And so usually around 9 is when I'm hungry, but sometimes I'll have a meeting from 8 to 9 and then 9 to 10. And so like sometimes I'll like have to plan ahead and take something with me, or
Mhm.
just, or if I have like a lot of meetings in the afternoon, I have to make sure that I eat plenty for lunch and maybe take a snack with me if I'm not going to be back at my desk. So, I really try to have a lot of like think ahead and just be prepared just in case, because like you said, I try not to get to that 1 or 2 stage for sure.
Right. Yeah, definitely want to avoid that as much as possible. That's great. I love that you have that more detailed one. I think the book has one itself, I think, but could try and find one and post it to the event, because that is really helpful, especially the more detailed it is. Um, okay. Do you have anything else to add before I mute you?
No, that's it.
Okay. All right. I think no, you just said, oh my gosh, that's true. Okay, so we've talked a, quite a bit about hunger, and self-care a bit. Um, let's see if there's anything else topic-wise that I had. Um, is there any kind of doubts or concerns that are popping up in your head as you hear kind of these, just eat when you're hungry? It's that simple. Because of course it's not. And I hope that we're not trying to, people that are sharing and myself, no one is trying to come off that way. It's definitely not easy as one, two, three. Um, but it is something that can be that easy over time. So is anyone kind of having any like, I don't know, this is just too easy, or any questions or concerns about what you've heard so far? Mhm. Okay, all right. I'm gonna keep going. If one comes to you, stick your hand up in the air. Um, so one of the things on this slide about what if I want to eat and I'm not hungry, I kind of listed some situations when that might happen. And I think the thing that I've really had to think about is my goal, personally, which I'm sure a lot of people might relate to, is I just want to be a normal eater. I just want to be one of those people who food doesn't rule my life. I can just go through my day, eat when I'm hungry, eat foods I enjoy, not feel guilty about them, not have these huge emotional, feelings attached to them, not let them make me feel bad, whatever. Um, but being a normal eater means that there are going to be times when you deviate from, the intuitive eating principles. There's going to be times when you're eating and you're not hungry. So has anyone had any experiences when you have eaten without being hungry, um, and it's been okay, or just I don't know, kind of how you felt about it? Um, did you get any satisfaction from it? Was it different than when you are actually hungry? Because I know for me, if I eat, even if it's on a holiday and you're eating foods that are rare, you're eating grandma's cookies, but you're not hungry. Yes, they'll taste good, but they won't be as satisfying if you are hungry. So let's hear what Tana has to say. Hold on here. Okay. Hey, Tana.
Hello. Well, the one time lately that I have found myself eating when I'm not really hungry, and it's probably really common, I think, is when I'm getting ready to go work out. So I haven't eaten anything in a long time and I want to have the energy, but I don't really
Mm-hmm.
feel that hungry. So, and I want to eat about an hour before I go to the gym. So I usually have something and, I question myself, but then I know that it's better for me and the way I am to do that. And it's not a huge meal or anything because I want it to be kind of digested.
Right.
But that's one that really happens to me a lot. And I actually do stop and think about this. So it's coming up in my mind as, okay, this is okay, I'm pretty sure,
Uh-huh.
so I just love to hear thoughts on that.
Yeah, that's actually something I should have put on here. Um, There's something in one of the books I was just reading about the whole exercise aspect because you're talking about the reverse aspect. I was kind of thinking the other way when you're done working out and you do something really intense like run 4 miles in 48 minutes, kudos to you. Um, you your body actually your appetite is completely suppressed for depends on what kind of exercise you're doing, but usually when you do something intense enough, you actually won't get hungry for a while after. It might take half an hour to 45 minutes. Maybe you don't get hungry for a couple hours. Um, but we kind of have to know that our body needs kind of to be refueled after that. And of course, we want to, treat our body and refuel it in the way that makes us feel good. We don't want it to just be like, well, now I can just go eat whatever I want, which you can. But of course, you want to be able to feel good about what you're choosing to eat. Um, and so the reverse of that, what you're saying is, okay, I'm not really hungry, but I'm about to go do this tough workout and I'm going to crash if I don't eat before. And that's again using your common sense, using what you know is best for you. Yes, you might not be, or no, you might not be hungry, but if if you don't eat, you're not going to get through that workout. So, um, and the fact of the matter is, you're probably not that far off from being hungry if you haven't eaten for a couple hours. Um, so I think in those situations, you're taking good care of yourself um, and doing what's best for your body because your body needs that fuel. Um, but yeah, I just don't think it has to be a big meal or anything because that's going to be uncomfortable and not make your workout any better. Um,
Right.
but yeah, eating something to give yourself that. I mean, especially something that has some sort of carbs in it or something, um, is a good thing. I don't think that's something. I'm glad that you feel good about it because I think you would feel worse if you weren't doing that. Um,
Definitely.
Yes. So that's a really good point with the whole exercise thing. Do you find yourself afterwards, and anyone else can answer this too, after you do your workout, do you find that you're not hungry for a while, or how does that hunger pattern usually go after doing the workout?
It definitely is different every day. Most of the
Okay.
time, I can go about 30 minutes and then I know it's time
Mm-hmm.
to eat something. But other times, I am so hungry when I leave the gym, I will die. So really, really it depends. But I think the first one I said is the most, and I really try to understand. I just, worked out for 2+ hours. I need to eat something. And so within 30 minutes, I need to be starting to look for some protein or look for something like that, to get it in there because I know that I need it.
Yep. Exactly. Thank you for sharing.
Thank you.
And I'm gonna go to Brittany here. Alrighty, Brittany, I know you've been working out a lot lately. What do you have to say about this whole situation, or if you're gonna say something different, that's fine too.
No, I was actually really glad that Tanner brought that up because I was actually thinking earlier today, I really want to bring this up, and then I totally forgot because it's what I do. But more so with the after workout, rather than the before, even though she did bring up a good point. You need to make sure that, especially eat in a while, that you eat something that's going to help sustain you through your workout. But I
Mhm.
definitely notice when I get finished with the workout, if it's not a very, you know, really, really hard, strenuous workout, I'm not dying when I'm done, there's this sort of negative correlation with how hard I work out and how hungry I am afterwards. So if I do, kind of a light workout, just something to get my heart going, like doing weights, I don't feel sometimes that I exert myself as much as I do when I run. And when I finish with weights, I am starving. Like I could eat anything that I come across.
Mhm.
But when I run, it seems the further I run and the harder I've pushed myself, the less hungry I am afterwards, which is I've always found kind of weird because I'm like I should be starving. So like when I did
Mhm.
my marathon, I got home and I was not hungry at all.
Mhm.
And I didn't eat and I should have and I was dead for like the rest of the weekend.
Right.
But I think that's something that even though, we are trying to listen to our hunger and, if we're not hungry, don't eat, we do need to take into consideration that even if you just worked out for 30 minutes or an hour, your body has just expended a lot of energy
Mhm.
and you do need to replace that. And you need to replace it quickly or your body's just going to kind of go into this kind of what I call like a crash mode where
Right.
now you're just exhausted.
Yep.
And you may even be too tired to eat at that point and you don't want to get up and do things, even though you know you should get up and move around a little bit
Mhm.
because you didn't replenish your body in a timely fashion. So I
Right.
definitely, I'm really happy that she brought that up because it is, so totally true that even if you're not hungry after a good hard workout, you should eat something, even if it's, just a granola bar
Right.
or, some peanut butter and toast or something like that,
Mhm.
just to kind of get your body back to fixing itself
Mhm.
and then getting those immediate energy stores back.
Right. And since you're totally right, and since you're not actually hungry, like you don't feel hungry, even though your body probably is, it may be smart to make it something little, to refuel your body, since you won't necessarily be as satisfied. That way, you can get hungry again sooner and actually like be more satisfied by your food. So yeah, I agree. Something small, something protein to kind of
Mm-hmm.
get your body going again. But it's probably the difference of exercise. Weightlifting and cardio are completely different, so it can really affect how quickly you get hungry. Um, so yeah, thank you for sharing, and I agree. Great question, Tana. I'm gonna switch over here to Kathy real quick, and then we'll probably get close to wrapping it up here. Hey, Kathy, what you got?
Oh, I was just going to kind of comment based on what Brittany said that it's funny because last year, until about, I don't know, about 6 months ago, I would get up at 4 in the morning, I would work out hard for an hour, and I would go to work and I wouldn't eat breakfast until like 8. And I don't know how I did it because about 6 months ago, I started having a shake in the morning around 6. So, so now I get up at like 4:15 and do like a 30 to 45-minute workout or whatever. And then by 6, I'm realizing that I'm actually, my stomach is like, feed me, and now I'm wondering how I ever did that. Would get up
Mhm.
and work out for an hour and then go to work and not eat for 4 hours after that or something.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, I find myself now that I'm actually paying attention and reconnected to my hunger. I mean, by 6, my stomach's like, hey, I'm at a 3 or 4 and I need something.
Yep. It's. I mean, I think
So,
that's
and I really
awesome.
look forward.
Go
I
ahead.
look forward to my shake. I make Shakeology with like in the blender with coconut milk and ice, and it's so creamy. It's like ice cream shake. It's so good.
Yeah, that's awesome. And I think that's great because I think in a diet mentality, you wouldn't feel comfortable eating at 6 and then again at 9 and then again at lunch. Because I feel like a diet mentality makes you think, well, I guess sometimes a lot of diets tell you to eat 6 times a day. But I feel like it can feel a little more guilty when you're on a diet, eating that often, but you clearly need to, and it sounds like it's working for you. So I know that I have to eat that often too. So that's great, and I'm glad that you love it. Um, anything else, Kathy?
Nope, that's it. Thank you for doing these. I appreciate it.
Thank you, and thanks for your scale. I appreciate it. Um,
Oh yeah,
sorry, totally muted you in the middle of your sentence. I'm sorry. What were you gonna say?
no problem. I was just saying I Googled it and found it while you were talking to Brittany.
Okay, perfect. I appreciate it. I've never seen that particular one, so it looks really cool. Okay, now I'm going to meet you. All right, so Taylor posted because she's reading the intuitive eating book right now, and I think most of you have read it or hopefully are thinking about it. Um, but yeah, the Honor Your Hunger chapter, she says, had a lot of topics related to research. For those of us who have been stuck in the diet mentality for so long, it's eye-opening that it shows that by doing a diet, you're actually getting further away from where you want to be. So many people are dieting and attempting to achieve some miraculous goal, but little do they know they're steering themselves in the wrong direction. And I really appreciate you saying this because um, this intuitive eating book is not just two ladies who were like sick of dieting and made all this stuff up. There's actually so much research around intuitive eating, and they wrote this book years ago, and there's so much more even since then, which I really encourage you to kind of look into. But it really is true. Diets get us way farther than where we want to be because let's be serious. Whenever we were dieting, what were we doing it for? To lose weight. Um, but dieting's actually proven to kind of steer most people either they gain it back um, or they gain more back than what they started with. And then they start it all over again and kind of lose and gain the same weight over and over and steadily kind of gain weight. It's very rare for someone to succeed at a diet. I think it's like 1 to 2% of people, and those people, I'm guessing, aren't super happy. Um, but yeah, and and I like how you said this miraculous goal because it really would be a miracle to be one of those 1 to 2%. Um, because they're somehow, I don't know who those people are, but they're fighting something that really can't be fought. And there's this quote in Women, Food, and God that I posted somewhere today, and I thought it was amazing. And it's just talking about how diets kind of promise, they kind of make us deny our present for the promise of a better future. Um, if you can just not eat what you want, if you can just exercise every day, if you can just do this, do that, stay under this calorie, in the end, it'll pay off when you have the body you want. But the thing is even when you get to that goal weight, even if you do, um, if you've done it in a way that's miserable and not sustainable, of course, you won't be able to maintain it. But not only that, you're still going to have a terrible mentality. And I think I've shared before with some of you guys, I have reached that miraculous goal weight before and I held it for all of like a month. But I still had the terrible mentality when I was there, and all I thought, oh, once I reach it, I'll just go back to normal eating and I'll be happy and whatever. But no, I actually was fearful and like afraid of gaining the weight back, so I was even more restrictive and more controlling and more um, had even less confidence because even though I hit the goal weight, I was like, well, I have to stay here now, and what if I don't stay here? And um, so yeah, I completely agree, Taylor, and I think just the promise, it's so elusive. It's not real, and it's just $1 billion industry trying to make more money. So I appreciate you sharing that. So I want to wrap it up here. Does anyone have any um, last minute thoughts to share or one last question or anything like that about the whole idea of hunger? Because again, I know it can be kind of a scary thing to tell yourself you can eat whenever you're hungry. I know a lot of people say, well, I'm going to be hungry. If I let myself eat when I'm hungry, I'm going to eat all day. I'm always hungry. Which I promise you, you're not. We biologically just wouldn't always be hungry. It's just a result of diet mentality. When you're on a diet, of course you're always hungry, because you're not letting yourself eat what you want. You're eating non-filling foods. You won't always be hungry. You might at first because you're rebounding from a diet, but you won't always be. So Tana, we'll let you kind of have the last word here. What's up?
I
Hello.
just
Hey.
really quickly wanted to say, oh, can you hear me?
Yeah, I gotcha.
Hello? Oh, okay, I'm so sorry. So I just wanted to say quickly, tonight it was so good. I've learned several things that I'm going to apply. So I wanted to thank everybody. And Brittany, I wanted to thank you because of what you said about, eating and then maybe waiting 10 minutes to see how you feel. And that kind of goes in line with what Kathy said, which I really appreciated because I have been feeling that exact thing where I eat my food. Of course, I eat it fast. I just love to eat and it just goes very quickly. And then about 15, 20 minutes later, I feel so much fuller than I did. And of course, I know that you should eat slow, but tonight that just both of those points that Brittany and Kathy made just really hit home for me, and I need to start slowing down and not devouring the food and while I'm sitting there I need to, because I have been really enjoying it, but I need to slow down because I feel like I'm eating to about a 7. I want to eat to a 6, but right now I feel like every time it's landing on a 7. But if I slow down and then maybe finish and just tell myself I can eat again and give myself that 10 minutes or 15 minutes, and
Mhm.
I think that will help me not eat more food than I need, which I think I'm doing right now.
Mhm.
So
And
thank you.
yeah, and I'll say you're welcome for them. But yeah, they had awesome things to say. Um, so last thing I was gonna say, you love eating, which probably all of us do. So if you love it, and this is something that you know that I struggle with too, but take it slower because if you love it, make it last longer, right?
Right.
I know it's easy to scarf it down in 5 minutes because you love it so much, but I mean, it's just like if you really love, if I love my dog, I want to spend more time with her than less time with her. Um, so second thing I was going to say based on what you said is just kind of keeping, you know, it can be hard to slow down because you do want to eat it so fast, but I was kind of practicing today asking myself questions while I was eating to kind of make it easier. So I was like, I was eating waffles for breakfast and I was like, how do these waffles really taste right now? And I was like literally analyzing every single thing about them. I was admiring the butter and how good the syrup was and how crispy they were and whatever. So that can kind of help appreciate it more and make it feel easier to slow down. Um,
Great.
and the
Yeah.
last thing I was going to say was I always feel like I would rather eat less than I need, but enough to feel satisfied and know that I can eat more often throughout the day, kind of bouncing back and forth between that like 3 and 7, 3 and 6 range, rather than bouncing back and forth between the 1 and 10. Because if you bounce back and forth between extremes, you're not going to really get to enjoy your eating and you're going to be frantic and not eating as often. So just kind of remind yourself kind of the less high up you go, the more often you'll be hungry, and the more often you'll have chances to be satisfied. So that's kind of what I think about because I'd rather eat more often throughout the day than less often, and just eat smaller portions or however much I need to feel satisfied. But
Great
anyways,
point.
everyone's different, but that might help too. Okay,
Thank you.
so I have to cut this off only because this only lets it go for an hour. Um, but we'll have to change platforms next time. This was a free trial, so I'm too cheap to pay the like $80 a month for it. So we're gonna switch to a different platform. So keep your eyes peeled. It'll be sometime in February. But thank you all for logging on. If you have any more questions, just post them in the event. And I think all of you are in the intuitive eating support group, so no problems there. And I'll talk to you all later. Thank you so much. Bye, guys.